first, a little bit of backstory. I've wanted Smash Bros. Figurines since the original game on the N64 came out. You have to understand, though, that back in the late 90s, there wasn't nearly as much Nintendo merchandise on the market as there is today. And if you did stumble across a decent Mario or Link figure, you had to pay ridiculous prices on eBay for it. And since Super Smash Bros. Was still relatively new at the time, and its popularity wasn't certain, there was no guarantee that it would even become as big of a series as it is today. I was kind of SOL back then, because obviously there was no Smash Bros. Merchandise of any kind. Back then, I would have killed to have little miniature figures of my favorite Nintendo characters decorating my room, even though I was just a small child with no disposable income. So for me, the announcement of Amiibo, and the Smash Bros. Line in particular, was a dream come true. I was sold on the idea the minute they were announced. Heck, they didn't even have to have the game functionality that they are currently known for. Nintendo could have just released the figures without any NFC technology whatsoever, and I probably still would have bought every single one that I currently have, because this is what I have been waiting my whole childhood for, and that is really kind of sad, but I don't care because I'm just too happy these things finally exist. Nintendo has answered my prayer, and that's essentially why I personally have no problem walking into a Toys R Us, or whatever store they're exclusive to, as a man in his early 20s to buy a $13 toy meant for children. But I'm pretty sure the main reason a lot of people got sucked into Amiibo in the first place is because Nintendo chose to launch the whole thing with Smash Bros. Of all franchises. Super Smash Bros. Melee popularized the idea of Nintendo figurines coming to life, and Amiibo completely capitalized on that concept, the coming to life part also included. Everything just sort of fell into place when you think about it. There was no better franchise to launch Amiibo with because Smash Bros. Appeals to the widest variety of Nintendo fans. It covers the vast majority of their characters and franchises, so there was potential to reach all of those little people who would only buy one or two specific characters. And some characters had never even had much merchandise to their names at all before Amiibo. This is the first time we've ever gotten affordable figures of characters like Duck Hunt, Mr. Game & Watch, Captain Falcon, Wii Fit Trainer, Shulk, the Kid Icarus characters, and Fox, prior to the World of Nintendo series. Can you imagine how differently things would have turned out if Nintendo didn't make Amiibo for Smash Bros., but instead started with a different series like the Super Mario line? I mean, I love Mario as much as the next guy, but even I don't know if I would have gotten invested in Amiibo if this is what they had started with. Mario's great and all, but a lot of Nintendo fans are kind of burnt out on seeing him so much because of how much this franchise is milked. It still would have garnered some consumer interest because Mario is Nintendo's flagship franchise for a reason, but I don't think Amiibo would have been nearly as successful as it is without Smash as its launching point. I still bought the Super Mario Amiibo on impulse, but I kind of prefer the Smash incarnations of these characters because of just how much more detailed they are. But that's not to say that the Smash Bros. Amiibo are the only good ones. No matter how much I try to promise myself I would only buy the ones for Smash Bros., I keep getting sucked into this craze because Nintendo puts so much love and care into making these things look as good as they do. I ended up buying not only my favorite Smash Bros. Characters, but also ones I don't normally care for, the Super Mario series, Splatoon, and even one of those adorable yarn Yoshis with love in the stitches because even if the stock photos leave something to be desired, seeing Amiibo in person is a whole different experience. Obviously, their quality and whether or not they're actually worth the $13 price tag is up to personal preference, but I know a vast majority of people only buy these things to collect them. Some take them out of their boxes and decorate their personal spaces with all things Nintendo of the plastic variety. Others have dedicated walls or shelves just to hold their growing collections, and some people just prefer to keep them in the box because the packaging is just so stylish that tearing it up tears them up inside as well. There's also a growing number of collectors with an artistic side who get creative and physically alter existing Amiibo in amazing ways that have to be seen to be believed. There's no shortage of passionate people when it comes to Amiibo, so it's kind of amazing that this community was able to grow and thrive as much as it has over the course of a single year. Especially when you think about how bad the stock situation was for the longest time. Even if you've lived under a rock, I'm sure you still have an idea of where I'm going with this. People are absolutely crazy about Amiibo, and to say that a lot of people want them is an understatement. Hell, from the first day Wave 1 of the Smash line came out up to today, Amiibo have been selling consistently better and faster than the Wii U has in its entire lifespan. And that's kind of depressing when you think about it. But it seems like only yesterday I had to camp outside retail stores at the crack of dawn or earlier just to have a chance at snagging one of the newly released amiibo that was available in a single-digit stock before scalpers came to scoop up the rest and turn an overpriced profit for them online. I don't really want to go into the math or economics behind the amiibo scarcity, but that's only because it's just amazing how understocked these things were for the longest time. It used to be that if you weren't lined up outside the store on the night before release or glued to your computer on a retail website, desperately waiting to snag a pre-order, you weren't getting your Ness, your Robin, your King Dedede, or your Jigglypuff amiibo. It was as simple as that. And it was frustrating as hell to deal with. I understand that Nintendo severely underestimated the popularity of amiibo at first, and the port strike may or may not have contributed to the supply problem overseas. But it's kind of astounding that people stayed in the hunt, even though it took Nintendo months to finally get a better idea of how many amiibo they should be sending our way. Despite the fact that these things were out of stock so quickly and so often, and Nintendo seemed completely oblivious to the problem, the popularity of amiibo only continued to grow instead of losing steam as frustrated consumers give up the search for their favorite rare characters. Some people came into the amiibo market only for potential rarity and seeking to resell them, but the vast majority stuck through the drought without ever giving up on their collections. It's amazing how quickly this whole craze took off and hasn't shown any signs of slowing down whatsoever. Well, maybe not until the Smash Bros. Line is finished anyways. Amiibo has grown as big for Nintendo as it is because that's a testament to how loyal people are to the Nintendo brand. How willing people are to brave bad weather, deprive themselves of sleep, and stand in line like it's Black Friday every month simply because they love these characters that much. And this isn't me passing judgment on the Amiibo fans because I'm one of them. But if the Amiibo releases in the later half of this year were anything to go by, I'd say that these days of nightmarish Amiibo scarcity are behind us. For the most part anyways. Nintendo seems to have a better idea of how much stock is necessary for each of the territories where they're sold. Of all the launch day horror stories I've heard, the fewest came from Smash Wave 5 and beyond. GameStops were holding anywhere from 40 to 60 or more pre-orders for the Retro 3-pack. I can still walk into any Target in my area and find 5 or 6 Dr. Marios. Even Zero Suit Samus, Ganondorf, and Olimar, or any of the 3-colored yarn Yoshis aren't as terribly hard to track down as we may have initially thought they would be. Of course, this is just my area, and the Amiibo stock will differ depending on where you live. But it seems like overall, the rush and panic surrounding these $13 toys might be slowing down ever so slightly. In addition, Amiibo such as Lucario, Greninja, and Shulk, which were all previously exclusive to certain stores, have begun showing up in Best Buys, indicating that the exclusivity deals may be timed and won't last forever. I don't think I even need to mention how many people were finally able to get Marth, Little Mac, and Villager thanks to the restocks that happened earlier this year. Things are starting to look up. Online prices are dropping, and stores have been taking extra measures to prevent resellers from depleting their entire stock in one trip. It might be a bit too early to say that the Amiibo bubble has popped, but the situation is changing. If I were to have made this video months ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to do anything other than sit here and complain that I couldn't get this or that character because the store only had 3 in stock and I wasn't in line early enough to get one. But nowadays, that's not really the case anymore, for the majority of the population anyway. I don't think we'll ever get to the point where we have an absolute Amiibo surplus and every single one ever released will be well stocked at every single store. That's just a pipe dream. But if you missed out on certain Amiibo you've been clamoring for, you now have more options to get them than ever before, and the price you pay might not be as high as it would have been not too long ago. But what does this all mean for the future of Amiibo? The Smash Bros. Line is essentially finished, save for any remaining DLC characters. But after that, will people still be interested? It seems like a lot of us only got into this whole craze for Smash, and even though I was enticed to pursue the other lines, that doesn't mean everyone else was. I'm sure future lines will each see their own share of financial success, but will that be anywhere near what has been attained with the Smash Bros. Amiibo? The point I'm trying to get at here is how much of Amiibo's success came from what it is, and how much came just from Smash Bros. Being involved. If you walk into a store and see one of the newly released Amiibo from one of the newer lines well stocked, is that because Nintendo did a good job guessing how much stock to send? Or Was it because they're just not selling as much? I worry that maybe Amiibo's popularity will gradually decline from here on out over time without its popular franchise at the helm. We've already seen the technology in a new form with the Animal Crossing cards, so is that going to start to fade out the physical figures? And then of course we have Nintendo's newest console, the NX, on the horizon. Will that system have the NFC technology to support Amiibo at all? Or is this just another console gimmick that just doesn't last longer than a single generation? I know it seems like I'm asking a lot of questions and giving so few answers, but that's just because I don't know the answers myself. I have no idea what the future of Amiibo is going to look like. I would like to see more substantial game functionality from these things since, to this point, their use has been purely cosmetic at best, outside of Smash Wii U and 3DS. Super Mario Maker and Yoshi's Woolly World were a good start, but we still need something more. I'd like to see some kind of game based around Amiibo functionality. Perhaps some kind of Nintendo crossover RPG that lets you play as the characters you tap into the system, and if you don't have a certain Amiibo, you could still fight alongside that character as they're controlled by the computer AI. I don't know. We just need something that ties all of these releases together and appeals to all the different kinds of collectors out there without alienating anyone by locking too much substantial content behind a paywall. If Smash Bros. Really is the driving force behind Amiibo, then Nintendo needs to come up with something big for this property afterwards, because we aren't going to keep getting Smash Bros. DLC characters forever. I feel like Nintendo really needs to pull out all the stops and come up with something that really shows their consumers that all of the money they have invested into Amiibo so far was worth it. And this is just a personal gripe, but I wish Nintendo would tone it down with the store exclusives here in the US, because they're frankly getting out of control. I was fine with 1 or 2 characters only being available at each store, but when we're getting to the point where you can only get certain characters in packs, or they're even locked behind a Wii U bundle, things are kind of getting out of hand. I get that this is just part of how business is done here in America, but I can't help but feel like Toys R Us is trying to start their own little Amiibo monopoly with how many exclusives they seem to be getting as of late. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. So what's your take on Amiibo? Do you collect them? Do you not? What do you use them for? What do you think the future of Amiibo is going to look like once the Smash Bros. Line is officially done? And what would you like to see in future releases or functionality? Feel free to discuss it in the comments below. Thanks for watching. This has been Brahmestro12 signing off.